Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, March 10th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, we had a really busy schedule in the NHL last night, a lot of eventful events that occurred in the league. We're going to start off, first of all, with the game at Air Canada Center. I think the game that probably had the most playoff ramifications between the Maple Leafs and the Philadelphia Flyers. Maple Leafs win it 4-2. Mitch Marner scores, Nazem Kadri. It was a really entertaining game for a while, but Russ, I think the first thing that I picked up from that game, and it was a little bit of a questionable thing going into the game, was the decision of Dave Hackstall to go with Michael Neuwirth over Mason after Mason, I think he's 3-0-1 in his last 4 games. And Neuwirth, he didn't do badly overall, but he was really shaky in the first couple periods.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it this morning, like on Sirius. I have that up on Audio Boom. I thought the Marner goal, while it was a good goal, I thought he took forever to try and get in position to possibly stop that. And then the guys brought up the Bozak goal too. And it's true. I mean, both of those, probably one of them at least he'd want back. But this is a tough decision to make because, now they're going to go into Boston. They lost on a 4-point swing. Those 4-point swings this time of the year are a killer. And I thought the only reason to have 2 goalies is to play the hot hand. They didn't play the hot hand, and he went with a hunch. The hunch didn't work. And I'm not going to say yet that this is going to cost them the season, but it's cost them dearly. Like you can't, if they go through another 4-point loss to Boston on both goalies, then you can maybe throw your hands up and say it's something else. But if Mason wins his next game, then people are really going to point to this game.
Well, it's funny because yesterday I said, from my memory, and I don't know the head-to-head stats, Mason has never played well against Toronto. So, I mean, I understood the reason why he might go towards Neuwirth. But the fact that Neuwirth didn't play, the last game he played was that outdoor game that you were at. And he was not that good in that game either. So, I mean, I know he signed a new contract and everything, and that really doesn't really matter. But, right now, when you're like last year, they went with Mason all the time down the stretch, and it's a little strange that they went away from that.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think it was a little strange. I think the Flyers' power play could have been a lot better. I think Shane Gostisbehere may have found himself a spot on the bench again. I mean, while the goal that he got was really nice, that turnover was awful. Like, what made that turnover really bad was that last second just giveaway to the Leafs and gave him that empty net goal. If it would have just been, hey, you didn't hold the line with the extra man, but you got the puck, control of the puck, nobody would have said anything. But the fact that he went to make that extra move and just put it right on the stick, that's where you have to say he was under duress. And you worry about when players are under duress, what the hockey IQ will do and the strength will do. And that's where I think his hockey IQ is usually pretty good. The strength wasn't there. And so he loses that puck and the Leafs win the game. The other thing that I thought was telling, which is something that, you've always pointed out, when the Flyers had that lead, like, why do the Leafs always give back a lead? Well, they were penalty after penalty. They gave the Flyers every opportunity to get back in that game with penalties, and the Flyers just didn't take advantage.
Yeah, Gostisbehere is sort of a double-edged sword because, I mean, he took the shot on the Simmons goal. It was a nice blast, the one that made it that narrowed the lead to 3-2. But the Leafs have sort of their own double-edged sword in Jake Gardiner. And if you remember that, and I know that, and you may have seen the highlight of it, but I know you missed the Bozak goal.
Yes.
The Flyers had a really good opportunity to take the lead after a bad Gardiner giveaway. And Frederik Andersen, who played great last night, made 2 saves. One, I think, was Schenn, and then the rebound was Delzato, and he turned away Delzato. And right after that, Bozak comes down and shoots it right inside the far post on Neuwirth's stick side, gives Toronto a lead that they will never relinquish. But that's the thing. Gardiner is still, even with the positive matchups, even with keeping him away from top lines, he still makes the key giveaway at the wrong time. And only by the grace of God and Frederik Andersen did they not give up the lead at that point.
Yeah, Andersen had a really good game. I mean, I thought he really played strong in the third period. There were some points where he even was down low getting tested pretty well and came through that. So that was a good win for the Leafs, Mike.
Yeah, it was a good win.
Okay,
But
all right. I just want to see if you would say that.
it was a good win, but the signs of the concern that I have regarding the Leafs popped up throughout that game, and is the reason why. Yeah, and Alexei Marchenko, who they brought in off of waivers, who they played regularly since Connor Carrick got injured. He was benched the last 15 minutes of that game. So they continue this mix match. Maybe Carrick gets back in the lineup. The whole thing is their defense is not good enough. I don't think their defense is good enough to get them in the playoffs, but we'll see. But
the penalty kill is better with Brian Boyle. You got to give him that.
Oh, yeah, and their penalty kill is – and in the third period, you can see the reason why Babcock wanted Boyle. Boyle was taking every other faceoff. If it wasn't Bozak, it was Boyle. Kadri is at best a 50% guy. Boyle is more like 53, 54%, and that makes a difference when it comes down to the end of the game. The other game that we'll start talking about, we'll talk about most of them here, but now, the Rangers going to Carolina. Carolina is out of it. But Carolina and Bill Peters, that team is not going to lay down for anybody, even though they're out of it. And they took a lead. The Rangers came back. And then late, Carolina wins the game 4-3. And apparently, Alain Vigneault was not too happy at the end of the game.
No, I mean, here's the thing. So you had a moment where Elias Lindholm's in the crease, puck shot, and Antti Ranta got elbowed in the head. Now, he was in the blue paint, and so this was a contentious point. Apparently, the officials told Alain Vigneault originally that Ranta was out of the paint, but then when they reviewed it, they saw that he was in the paint. So what they said is his head was out of the paint. So almost like he was asking for it. And so here's there's a lot of self-deprecating Ranger fans out there, ones that will say, hey, don't blame the loss on the officiating. And I didn't, and I understand where that comes from. And I didn't say the Rangers lost the game because of that, but what I did say is now goaltender interference is becoming a bit of a joke, because if this blue paint is not safe for goalies, then just take it away. Because now if you're going to measure where a guy's head is, which conceivably it seemed like it was in the blue paint, and I think it's pretty judgmental to try and tell somebody his head was out of the paint, so it was okay that it got hit.
Right.
It's not a good reason, and I understand why Vigneault blew up. And it's one of these things now where if a goalie's in that paint, you shouldn't be able to touch him. But clearly now there's extenuating circumstances, and now I don't even know what goaltender interference is anymore.
Well, I mean, I've seen calls where they've reversed goals on goaltenders who were outside of the paint, who the player was clearly going into them. So this may be some sort of redefinition of what goaltender interference is. Again,
you know what? They're supposed to do that after the season. You don't redefine it in season when nobody fully knows what it is anyhow. That's the thing about rules. When you set a rule, you have to follow that rule for the entire season. If you find out during that season that it's not good, like the offside rule, they've already said, you know what, it's only 9 goals, so we're going to leave it. Okay, but at least you've decided and looked at it. They haven't looked at this yet.
Well, here's my concern, and I've voiced this before. This goaltender interference and this offside, the video review for this is going to be so big and so controversial when it comes to the playoffs, when goals will mean more. I can just see, obviously a game or a series turned on this, and it's going to be a big cluster F when it does happen, because right now, and the reason I say this is because it seems to be, even though there are rules put in place, it seems to be subjective sometimes, right?
It is subjective, and that's what I said last night. It's completely subjective. The other interesting thing about this game was Sebastian Aho just shined, man. He was a beast. He had 2 goals and an assist, I think. He may have 20 now in the season, and I don't remember if I put him on the preseason list, but I remember when we talked about it as far as for Calder's, that there were 13, 14 guys, and he was in the conversation. We've been talking about him all year. Mm-hmm. He's probably not going to win it, but he could ease his way into the top 3 now if he continues, because he has now become a force. He doesn't have a ton of points, but he has a lot of goals, and I'm happy to see it, because this should always tell people when you look at a draft and you look at players and you say, yeah, this draft was good, and you identify players X, Y, and Z, well, then here's another one. And it happens all the time.
Yep. And he was not a first-round pick.
No.
So, another key outing and a little bit of surprising. Oh, by the way, let me just go back to the Rangers for a second. A late scratch for Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
They supposed to play. They say lower body injury. I haven't heard anything on the severity of this. Were they just being careful? Were they just giving them?
They might just be being careful with him and Nash. We don't really get a sense for what the injuries were there. Grabner, we know he hasn't made his way back yet, so that's an obvious. So, look, the Rangers will never say it, but they're in the position where health is more important than wins right now.
Yeah. Okay. Another key game was Tampa Bay playing the Minnesota Wild, and Tampa Bay wins this game 4-1. And Andrei Vasilevsky again plays great, but this was a costly win for the Lightning. They lose Tyler Johnson, Nemestikov, and Cedric Paquette, all to injuries during the game. A couple of them, it's funny because I think it was both Nemestikov and Johnson were injured on confrontations or fighting for the puck with Nino Niederreiter. And so, he's a tough cookie to fight against.
Yes. How's that trade working out for the Islanders, by the way?
I don't know. How is it working out? No,
yeah.
But I mean, these three forwards, and I know it was Joe Smith, who's the guy who covers the Lightning for the Tampa Bay Times. He joked that Matthew Pekka should get his bags packed because all these players are now listed day to day, but it doesn't sound like it's like they're going to be back by early next week. It sounds like this could be lengthy injuries. And after trading Boyle and Filppula, their number one center right now, Russ, is Braden Point.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to dig deep. We'll see if the goaltending is good enough and they just have enough wherewithal to stay in it. They might. I mean, it's good that they brought Adam Ernie up, I'll tell you that, because that giving him a couple of games before all this hit the fan probably helps, because now he's going to be a key cog while they're have all these injuries. It's going to be interesting, but good for Vasilevsky. I really wouldn't have expected them to win this game, but they did, and so they're in it. They're still in it.
Yeah, X said that he knew they were going to win.
I know. Whatever. I'm honest about it. We'll leave it like that.
Now, let's just say this is not any kind of great concern right now, but I believe the Wild have lost three games in regulation in a row. I remember hearing it was either this game or the last game. This was the first time they'd lost 2 games in regulation in a row since November. I mean, they're either going to finish first or second in the Central. They're having a great season, but maybe this is a little aspect of them, the gas pedal being taken off, the foot being taken off the gas pedal just a little bit before the stretch run.
It could be, and because they haven't been there before, they're going to need to put it back on very soon. I always get worried about that, but we are still far enough away that they could still get on a roll.
Yeah. Another game that was sort of interesting, I kept checking back to it, and I don't really know the reason why, because, I mean, both teams I think are going to make the playoffs, Anaheim and Chicago, but it continued to be 1-0, and I think the thing that I was struck by is Jonathan Bernier goes into the United Center and gets a 1-0 shutout. Bernier hasn't played great this year as the backup for Gibson, but right now with Gibson out and every point counting, they've needed Bernier to step up, and he came out and won against the Leafs last weekend. He goes into Chicago, gets a shutout. He's playing pretty well. Not to say that once Gibson is back, Gibson isn't going to get all the ice time, but I think that this proves that Bernier, still has something left.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like he still belonged in the league. I just, think he lost his ability for a while to be a number one, and maybe that will still prove out. But again, like a good backup, he's come in there and really won some big games. That was impressive yesterday.
Yeah, Corey Perry with the only goal in the second period. Now, Carey Price was supposed to start against the Calgary Flames in Calgary, was scratched late because of the flu. Not disputing that, but it was just strange. And, obviously anytime anything happens with Carey Price, there's a little bit of a concern. And Flames took advantage of Al Montoya winning 5-0.
They destroyed them. They literally destroyed them.
Yeah. And now this is the thing. The Flames are absolutely scorching. They're red hot, and not to make a pun.
No, they are. They are. And
They won 8 games in a row. They have not lost since they got Michael Stone in the deal from Arizona. Not to say that's the sole reason, but
no, but I mean, again, that was a good pickup for them. Here's the thing, though. I was a little disappointed in Montreal's defense in that game because I saw how Goudreau scored a goal low. A few of them were scored that way, a little too easy. And if you ask me, I mean, that was a weird game though because I think Kachuk took a stick to the face by Galchenyuk, and the stick stayed there for a few seconds. It was an interesting video to see. But Matthew Kachuk had a really good game. Again, another one of those guys that makes it like 15 guys deep for rookies this year. Like this rookie class for this year has just been unbelievable.
Well, let me ask it because we said the same thing last year when we looked at the top 10 of like the Calder race, and guys like Larkin were in there, and obviously Eichel and McDavid. I think this one might be deeper. I mean,
It's deeper.
I heard somebody making a case. You mentioned Aho. I heard somebody making a case for Brady Shea being in the Calder race.
Yeah, I think he's up to 29 points. I mean, and he's played great. He's playing power play. He's getting big minutes. He's everything we thought he would be. We always talked about him well on this show. But yeah, he's another guy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I mean, Eck continues to mention Matt Murray, and he's eligible.
Yep.
William Nylander will finish third on his team in rookie.
Right.
But he's one of the best rookies. Even and I'm not saying this guy should be in the Calder race, but a guy like Connor Brown is having a really good year. So I mean,
there's probably 15 to 17 guys that we legitimately can list that in other years would definitely be top 3 guys, but you can only do 3 this year. This year, if they could do 6, it would be nicer because there's that many guys that probably deserve it.
Now, more on the West Coast, and I stayed up to watch a couple of these games. Senators going to Arizona, second of back-to-back games, beat the Coyotes in overtime 3-2. Now, again, another team that's red hot after the deadline. The Senators seem to have a lock on second place and are going for first. Not that the Canadians have struggled since the deadline, but they take advantage of a Canadians' loss. I mean, I really can't believe because I'll say I predicted the Senators to finish 30th. And
I didn't say 30th, but I didn't say playoffs either. I'm surprised, but again, we talked about it yesterday, but I did watch some of this game, and here's what I took out of it. Erik Karlsson will be up for Norris again this year because, again, what does he have? About 60 points. He
scored 2 goals yesterday. His 12th and 13th of the year, the one in overtime.
Can't get the puck away from him. Like, it's just, people could marginalize him all they want, or they could say Brent Burns is fantastic because they like his beard. And look, it's more to it than that. I get it. But the idea is Erik Karlsson's still pretty great, and he's going to be in the conversation again. I did like the goals by Brendan Perlini and Lawson Krause. Again, for Florida's sake, a team that's struggling, that had injuries, how does that Lawson Krause deal look for them?
Yeah.
Just giving them away.
I still don't get that one. I really don't.
He's only got 4 goals right now, but you're now seeing the template where he could be a pretty nice NHL player.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little while.
It's going to take him time. Right, exactly. Nashville and LA. In LA, the Kings win 3-2. And old warhorse Jerome McGinley with 1 goal during regulation and a power play goal in overtime for the winner. You sort of had a feeling that there was something left in the tank for McGinley. This is like Vinny Lecavalier a redux.
I think ever since I interviewed him, the monkey went off his back. He got a chance to talk about it. He recognized an old friendly face, and I think Jerome owes me something because I think he's gotten a little push out of that. But in all seriousness, I expected him to rebound. I did. He is a guy that could score goals, period. And I knew his confidence wasn't waning. And now he's on a team that is confident. He's going to catch Joe Sakic and pass him, I told you, in goals. And that's going to be a funny day when that happens. And he's edging closer. The Kings are also edging closer. And I fully expect them to make the playoffs. Like, it didn't matter what place they were in 2 weeks ago. That team just knows how to get there.
Now they're up to 70 points. St. Louis is at 71 for the final wild card spot in the West.
They're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we'll go over the races after we go through the scores here. The game that I concentrated on and the game that sort of broke the hearts of Maple Leaf fans was the Canucks and Islanders. And I have to tell you, in watching that game, Josh Ho-Sang, wow. I mean, Russ, I've seen him play a couple times. I saw him play with Niagara last year. He looks like a player, like a real player. I mean, he's got a lot of speed.
Yeah, he's got speed through the neutral zone, which is great, and puck handling skills. As long as he doesn't take stupid penalties and get undisciplined and get off his game, he'll be fine. That's the only problem with him. Otherwise, I've always liked his game. But there's always that little bit of the other thing that you hope doesn't happen. But teams are going to test him. If he goes and plays the Maple Leafs, Kadri is going to test him. There's going to be guys that will test him, and we'll see. But yeah, this is good for the Islanders. I mean, they're in pretty good position now.
Well, they showed some resilience yesterday because they had a 3-2 lead all throughout the third period, and Troy Stecher ties the game with 20 seconds left to go in regulation.
Yeah,
and they come back in overtime, couple chances either way, and then Andrew Ladd, and you gotta have to say this. Andrew Ladd has bounced back. He's got 9
picked it up.
Now, from what I heard during the broadcast yesterday, they're saying that the struggles at the beginning of the year were due to injury. Now, maybe that's revisionism. All I know is that he's played a lot better in the second half of the year, and now up to 19 goals. Not too bad.
No, I mean, at least he's having a semblance of a good season. I think if he ends up with 25 goals, we'll say nothing. If he ends up with like 22, we'll say, all right, not bad. Let's see what he does in the playoffs if they get there. It's still not a complete success, but it is looking better. But the team's looking a lot better. I mean, we knew that they weren't making the playoffs with Jack Capuano. Even though preseason I picked them as a playoff team, I saw with Jack Capuano they weren't, and then I wasn't sure what was going to happen with Doug Waite. So far, so good. They still got some ways to go, but Thomas Greiss played well. But this, I got to tell you about this Vancouver team is still a pesky team. They are.
Yeah, they're not quitting, and Miller. I thought Miller played well yesterday. They kept fighting, but I mean it was a big 2 points for the Islanders, and they
would have to win like 8 of 10 to really be in it. But you never know in this league. It's weird.
Yeah. No, looking at the standings right now. Let's start with the West because we were out west here. Right now, you have the Wild leading the Central Division with 90 points. Chicago 1 point behind at 89. Nashville at 75. Those are the top three in the Central. In the Pacific,
right.
San Jose looks to be home and cooled out for first place in the Pacific at 87 points. Anaheim at 80. Edmonton at 78. Calgary at 78. The wild card race right now is basically down to St. Louis at 71 and Los Angeles at 70. Winnipeg is at 66. They maybe have an outside chance, but they're just not playing consistently. And choice of the Dallas Stars. Sorry, Ak. They're 7 points behind the Blues, and
they're out of it. But in a weird way, if Edmonton were to lose like 5 in a row, they could be on the outside looking in too in a week.
Yeah, well,
week and a half.
No, I mean, knock on wood, Edmonton Oilers fans, but the one injury you can't afford right now is Cam Talbot.
Right.
Because you have no answer in goal if Cam Talbot goes down.
Right.
There's a lot of teams out there that they lose one player, their fortunes are gonna go down. But for them, I think losing Cam Talbot for a week and a half would be more detrimental to them than losing McDavid for a week.
Yeah, no question. I mean, because right now they're having a really good season, but they still haven't solidified themselves yet. And Calgary may jump their spot in the division, and then they're going to be a wild card team. And once you get into that wild card pool, you never know what's going to happen. But it just seems like Calgary's hot enough now that they're going to supplant them in division, and that could be a problem for Edmonton. We'll keep an eye on that.
Now, in the East, in the Atlantic, Montreal has 84 points leading the Atlantic. Ottawa is 2 points behind with 2 games in hand. at 82 points. Boston at 76 for third place. In the Metro, Washington 95, Columbus 90, Pittsburgh 90, the Rangers at 88. So those three teams are bunched up. And one interesting thing, and I was looking at some of the schedules, especially the Leafs going down the stretch. The last week of the season, they play Columbus, Washington, and Pittsburgh. People are thinking, okay, those guys are locked in the playoffs. They're going to rest all their guys. They're going to rest Crosby. No. They're battling for playoff spots, and I don't think that the way teams are, they're not. Nothing is going to be iced away. So these games are going to mean something to Columbus and Pittsburgh.
And again, I want to mention it again because that other show put the gun to my head. If Columbus makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm not going to be completely shocked. I'm not.
No, it all depends on who they match up with.
It's how it breaks. It does. It depends how it breaks.
Now, so the Rangers had the first wild card spot locked up at 88 points. The second wild card spot and the third place in the Atlantic are the two spots that are going to be battling. The teams are going to be battling for the final 15, 16 games of the season. Boston
really has to come in the Atlantic. If they're depending on the wild card, they're probably not going to make it.
I mean, Boston has played 67 games, so they have 15 games remaining. The Leafs have played 66, so they have Toronto has one game in hand. The Islanders have played 66 as well. Right now, the Islanders are 1 point ahead of Toronto at 75 points.
Here's the bad part for Boston.
Yeah.
Like I said, you agree, right? They have to pretty much stay in their spot in the Atlantic, I think. Now, with 15 games left, how many of those is Tuukka Rask going to have to play? 13?
I would say. Although the funny thing is, Khudobin has won his last 3 in a row.
I know, but are they going to continue to rely on him?
I would say of the 15 games, and not looking at their schedule, this is taken into consideration back-to-backs. I would say probably Rask would have to play 12 of the 15.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, that's a heavy workload there.
But I think that's the same. I mean, with Frederik Andersen of the 16 games, I think the Leafs only have 2 back-to-backs left. He's going to play 14 games.
Yeah.
Part of what was going on this year with Frederik Andersen was Mike Babcock seeing if he could be a number 1 guy and play number 1 minutes.
Well, we don't know yet. Anderson's never played this many games.
Right.
We don't know how he's going to be. We don't.
And again, knock on wood, he has had injury problems in the past. So I think that the loss yesterday kills Philly. Not to say that they're completely out of it, but
no, it really harpoons them. I mean, this is a loss that really magnifies because you lose to the Leafs, and now you've got to go up against the Bruins, and the Bruins need this game as badly as you do. Now, I'm going to go back to one of my old things. You can't come out of this Bruins game with a point and think that it's a positive. They really need a win.
Yeah, Tampa Bay.
A regulation win.
Tampa Bay
can't give them a point either. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Tampa Bay with the win yesterday. They stay at 71 points. Florida's at 69. Florida's 6 points behind the Islanders. But they're at 65 games, so they're equal in games. Now the schedule.
Now, here's the thing about Florida: they, because of injury, they're going to start Dennis Malgin again tonight at the wing, who does have a great arsenal of speed and stick skills, and we'll see because they really need scoring. We'll see if they're able to get it out of Malgin. They need a spark. They have to go on a winning streak, or they're going to be in trouble.
And they're playing the Wild in the second of back-to-back. So, after losing badly to Tampa yesterday.
Yeah, they're going to get Kempner in goal, which might help him, might not.
Right.
He's pretty good.
But, honestly, based on – and I know I'm being hard on James Reimer, and some Leaf fans who are Reimer fans are not too pleased with me. But, honestly, I would start Red O'Bara. I would.
I don't think they could, but if Reimer doesn't look good, I wouldn't hesitate pulling him. I'll go that far.
Yeah, there's 5 games on the schedule tonight. The Wild and the Panthers is one of them. The Buffalo Sabres and Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus. I think actually it's a home and home. I think Columbus plays here tomorrow night. Chicago at the Detroit Red Wings, Ducks and Blues in St. Louis, and I think the match of the night is Sidney Crosby and the Penguins visiting Connor McDavid and the Oilers.
That is the match of the night. That's a game that Edmonton really needs to get a point out of. They do.
Yeah. Now, I didn't read the entire statement, and if I can pull it up here, there was some reaction from some players. I know that you mentioned something about Voracek.
Yeah, Voracek thinks that it's sort of ridiculous the way the Olympic process is going.
Now, and it's ironic. And this is just my conspiratorial mind coming. David Backes came out and made a statement regarding the probable non-participation in the Olympics. So this to me sounds like the PA sent out a message to everybody, says, okay, guys, make your reservations known. Let's put the pressure on the league because the league is leaning towards not going. And you've had two prominent players, one who played for Team USA and Sochi, come out and say, this is, my family looks forward to this, blah, blah. I mean, honestly, I don't think the league cares about the individual complaints of the players. If it's not beneficial to the league, they're not going.
No, but I think the fans care. And so I think the players wanted it to be known that they want to play. And that's fine. I think we would expect that to happen. I'm not shocked by any of it happening. What I'm kind of a little surprised at is no answer back from the league.
Which to me indicates they've already made up their mind, unless they get the concessions from whoever, from the IOC or the IIHF.
If there was something close, they would have struck back with a remark, but they didn't.
Right, and they didn't, and I think that means that their position is hard and already determined, and the only way that they're going to reverse course is if they get what they want. And I don't know what that is, and I don't know who that's from, but if they don't, I don't think they're going. But me being the impatient person that I am, I just want them to make this decision now and get it over with, because I don't think really it's going to change one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you. I wish it would work that way, but it hasn't. I don't know why. I mean, you should know at this point what's going on. I mean, again, if I go back to the World Juniors and just sort of listening to what Renee Fassel said at that point, I wasn't very confident. I still suffer from the same lack of confidence.
Yeah, I want to pull up this letter, see if I can find this quickly here. If I can't,
did your mother send a letter to the NHL again?
Yes, I volunteered to draft for the St. Louis Blues again. No, I can't. Okay, I can't find the letter, but I'll just give you the gist of it. And I was taken aback by it because it was the former mayor of Glendale, Arizona, responding to Gary Bettman's ultimatum regarding the bill apparently that's in front of the Arizona legislature, or it's a referendum. I'm not sure which, but basically putting pressure, saying we can't play in Glendale. And we need this new building someplace else. We can't make a go of it in Glendale. And the ex-mayor of Glendale came out and excoriated Bettman. So basically saying, you said essentially the same things 15 years ago when the Glendale building was built, and essentially made Bettman look really bad. But this, to me,
luckily for Bettman, he's not the current mayor. So
well, yeah, but honestly, I don't think this matters one way or the other. I think what the whole ultimatum was the fact that they know that they may have run out of options here. I think they're hoping, that maybe this ultimatum turns things around, but I don't think they're going to hold their breath. And once it gets turned down, this is the justification that the NHL can use to say, okay, they're not going to help us, so we're going to go someplace else.
The interesting thing will be, is this a situation where we're going to get an answer to this before the draft? Or are we going to get an answer like right after the draft on July 1st? Hey, this doesn't look good in Arizona. And then what happens for the upcoming season? Like, is all of a sudden that going to be in flux and they're going to have to find a place to play? I mean, is it going to get that bad? Or are they going to come to an agreement for one more year and then have to look? We really don't know. And so once Glendale fires back for real with the real mayor, not the former, then we'll know exactly where they stand. It doesn't look good though.
Well, I mean, they're covered in both eventualities, because if they decide they're going to do an Atlanta Thrashers and just, essentially,
Which again, we do need to tell the audience
okay,
was being denied right up to the minute until they moved. So you
right.
can't go by what's always said publicly when it's called when you're dealing with the team moving, because the leagues never want a team to move. And if you remember, we never got any kind of word it was happening, and then all of a sudden it happened.
Yeah, just ignore those Mayflower trucks. They're not the
Right.
same ones that were used for the Baltimore Colts. Just ignore them.
Right.
And then
Right.
all of a sudden, boom, and it happens. But if you look at the way that the Quebec City, the arena's built, it's all ready. The ownership group, or the potential ownership group, has not said a peep in months. They're playing the NHL game, which is don't make any noise and you'll get your team eventually. Now, is it a case where the only problem with that, if they decided to make a quick move and they can't stay in Glendale, the only problem is scheduling wise, it'll be a cluster like Winnipeg. Going from Atlanta, Winnipeg had to play in the Eastern Conference for a year.
Right. And that's why, knowing that had happened, maybe they used that Seattle arena first so they don't have that happen.
Right. Now, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know whether, the Key Arena is going to have.
Look, they play hockey there. I saw basketball there. I didn't see hockey, but enough fans go there for the Seattle Thunderbirds that you got to believe they can make it workable. I know it's not an ideal situation for an NHL team, but they can make it workable for a season, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it probably would take longer than a year to get that new. And if it's talking about refurbishing that building, it's probably going to take a year or so. If they're talking about going to the new building, that there's 2 bids, it's going to take longer than that. So,
but they might refurbish as they go along, and when they're in there for that first year, and then worry about it later, or they simply just use the building for a year and then look for another spot down the road. Maybe then it goes to Quebec or somewhere else. Again, this team does have owners in Arizona, so that does make it sticky where they can't just, they'd have to sell the team or just move the franchise. And I think the owners would still be the owners, and they would just move the franchise.
The only thing that I think weighs against the possible quick move of them in the summer is the fact that this is the same summer that they're expanding in Vegas, and they wouldn't want to step on Vegas by having another team move somewhere else. It just, it shows, Vegas and the expansion shows, the profitability and the success of the league.
Right.
On one hand, and then on the other hand, you have a team that's packing up, moving trucks and moving to parts unknown.
It's the last thing they'd want to happen, but sometimes things happen and they happen.
Right.
I know that's not a great explanation, but that's just the way it is.
No, you're right. You're right. Okay, well, good show, Russ. We will be back on Monday. Myself, and you will be back. Maybe we'll have some guests during the week. And I'm sure there's going to be some meaningful games this weekend. I know that the Leafs play in Carolina. That'll be a tough game, and I know that I think the Bruins. Who did you say the Bruins were playing? Because that was
I didn't. You did.
Okay. I just want to, because there were a couple key matchups here. Let me just quickly pull them up, and while I learn how to talk here. The Flyers at the Bruins, 1 p.m. on Saturday.
Right.
And the Panthers and the Lightning meet on Saturday. So that,
that's a biggie.
What you'll see at the end of the weekend is probably that race of.
Is that game in Florida, or is it in?
It's in Tampa.
It's in Tampa. I was going to say, if that was in Florida, they might actually sell that out.
Yeah, well, a lot of Tampa fans. That's true. Okay, well, good show, Russ. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.